Hey guys, hope you're having a great day. Well, if you're like me, an X-Plane 11 user, you really are interested in how things are going with respect to development of the next release of X-Plane. We'll just call it X-Plane 12 for lack of a better name. So I decided to take a little bit of a time and put together a summary, do sort of an ad hoc, non-scientific study of what users want in X-Plane 12. So this is the result of that. I did a couple of polls on Facebook and asked a few questions in a couple of Facebook groups to gather this information. And I want to show you the results of that. Well, let's just take a look at what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to talk about the reasons for the project and the results of the polls that I did on Facebook in both the VR Aviators group as well as the X-Plane 11 group, which is a pretty large group. And then a breakdown of the top 3 X-Plane 12 improvements, we'll call it X-Plane 12 for lack of a better name, and how to get your voice heard regarding the features that you would like to see in X-Plane in the next release and ongoing sub-releases. So let's talk about the reason for the project. So I'm a longtime X-Plane 11 user. And I enjoy the sim extensively, especially in VR. And the community is fantastic. You've got a lot of people who have invested lots of time and money into the X-Plane 11 franchise and get a lot of enjoyment out of it. I also believe that Laminar Research really cares about their customers and they want to improve their product. They've shown this in the past. I've had interactions with some of the folks there when they were developing VR and some subsequent beta releases, and I can tell you that they really do care about the product that they produce. And I want to help fellow X-Plane flyers have their voices heard regarding the features that they would like to see in X-Plane 11. I would really like to see Laminar Research continue to advance their technology. That helps us all, right? And also, I just thought it would be interesting to consolidate this to get an idea of really what's important to people, right? So let's take a look at it. So what I did is I did a couple of polls. I did a poll on the X-Plane 11 group. I put up 6 different categories, main categories, and I asked people to vote. And those were scenery improvements, weather and system improvements, performance improvements, ATC improvements, flight model improvements, and VR improvements. And you can see here I got quite a nice response to that. And I also did that same poll on the VR Aviators group, the same questions, okay, although only 5 of them really had an interest, okay, in them. I asked people to post what their number one specific feature was in here as well, just to get an idea and to correlate back to what the detail might be within this vote. And then in addition to that, on both these groups, I also posted this, which if you could have only one feature improvement in the next version of X-Plane, what would that be? Just one. And you can see here 189 comments on the X-Plane 11 board, which has almost 35,000 members. And I spent some time going through these just to get a sense for what was underneath the top level votes, if you will. So this really gave some good information. Now, again, this is a non-scientific compilation, right? So let's take a look at the results. So basically, the X-Plane 11 group, most of the folks there, a large majority of the folks wanted to see scenery improvements, and that's the same with the Aviators group. VR Aviators group had a improvement in VR as a high priority, although overall in X-Plane 11, that wasn't a high priority, and that sort of makes sense. But generally, the other improvements, weather and performance, fell right in line in that group as well. So you can see here we had a combination of over close to 370 votes just on the top line subject, which is a pretty good response. So let's look at this combined. 61% of the improvements requested fall in the area of scenery improvements and weather improvements. So basically visual experience type improvements. And that's probably has a lot to do with Microsoft Flight Simulator stepping up the game on scenery, as we all know. In fact, a lot of comments were, I would just like to see scenery similar to Microsoft Flight Simulator, right? So that's probably the reason, why you see this. And, all along the last few years, I know that I've heard people ask for these 2 areas to be improved as well. And then the third one was performance improvement, which was 16%. So it's over 3/4 of the combined improvements fell into 3 categories. VR was very small, and that was obviously more in the VR group. Flight modeling was very small, and ATC improvements, that was small as well. So let's just break down the top 3 and kind of dive into those a little bit deeper. A lot of people said they wanted to see the scenery be more like Microsoft Flight Simulator. Okay, they wanted 4 seasons. Google Earth-based scenery was often mentioned in those posts on Facebook. Improved lighting, improved building and textures of the structure, 3D grass and trees. That's a bugaboo for me. I would love to see that. I think X-Plane's trees really need improvement. Varying watercolors and improved night lighting. All right, so those are all pretty good foundation of what people would like to see within improvements of scenery. And then in weather, people wanted to see smooth transition between the weather, volumetric clouds, improved rain on the windscreen, and improved snow and rain overall. And in the area of performance, it really kind of fell down to one continuous request, which was better CPU utilization for multi-core and more multi-threading support. Right, so being able to thoroughly use those 8 or 10 core CPUs to the best of X-Plane's ability. All right, so that sort of breaks things down. And if you want to go back, you could do searches on these Facebook groups and find these polls if you want to read through some of these features. Pretty much consolidates it. Now, what's really important is that these three things line up with what Laminar Research has on their feedback website. Let's talk about how you get your voice heard, right? So there's a website, feedback.x-xplane.com, okay, where you can go and you can either enter a feature that hasn't been added, or you can search for a feature that you have an idea for, and you could upvote it, right? So as I say here, sign up and search and vote first. So if you have a feature, let's say dynamic weather, right? Instead of adding it again, just hit this uptick, and that raises the importance of that particular feature, right? But you have to be logged in to do that. But this is a great place to submit your feature requests or your feedback for improvements in X-Plane 11. So let's just take a look at that site. So you can see here, the top features that people are requesting have to do with scenery and weather, atmosphere lighting model, seasons, dynamic weather, volumetric clouds, and then better CPU utilization. The top 5 features requested all have to do with those top 3 that we have isolated. So it's pretty much falling in line as that's where people want to see the improvement. And you can go down through here and see things like ATC and grass and foliage, different color water, many, many different things, okay? But I highly suggest that if you would like to give your input, sign up here and do a search for the particular feature that you want and make sure you upvote it. And you can see Laminar has responded. For the example of dynamic weather, planned smooth transition between weather systems is something we're looking into. They're trying to give users feedback into this particular capabilities that they're requesting. I think this is a fantastic way for Laminar Research to basically stay in touch with their user base and give them feedback to let them know that they're actually thinking of these things, right? Or they're considering these things. So be sure to use this and to let Laminar know what you want. But again, do the search first and upvote first, because you don't want to create 2 or 3 or 4 of the same feature. If your feature falls within something that someone has already put in there, just upvote it, and that's going to get that particular feature more eyeballs. All right? So I hope this was helpful. I hope this gives you an idea of how to get your voice heard in the next version of X-Plane or subsequent versions of X-Plane. And if you're like me, you would certainly like to see X-Plane 11 improve. I have a lot invested in this flight simulator, and I really enjoy it, as it's really one of the best flight simulators for VR flying, which, as you guys know, is what I primarily do. All right, guys, hit that like button if you like what you saw. I hope this was helpful. And please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more information about X-Plane 11 and VR flight simulation. Guys, have a great day, and thanks for watching.